and welcome to your program. This is SOUQ Pulse. And it's a beautiful evening, start of the evening in Nigeria, Lagos to be precise. And we're live on SOUQ News, where we tell you it's all about positivities. So go around, get informed. Then when you get here, you detox. That's if you didn't start with us. So it doesn't matter what has hit you, what side of the news, narrative, negative, very negative. Things you might not be proud of. Once you get here, you detox. Then once you land here on SOUQ Pulse, we talk. No dull moment. And we don't keep quiet here. And we tell you the same thing. Do not keep silent. We talk. Whatever it is, we talk. So today we are heading somewhere. Something close and very close to where we were on Friday. But our guest had to leave, and a lot of those things were hanging in the air. We're looking at things that the populace should know. Who is responsible? Who is doing what? What agencies actually are there that people that should benefit from it are not even aware? Or the average Nigerian or the average African is not aware that there are really agencies on ground to sort some particular issues, everyday issues, because everything is interconnected. So we'll open up that particular chain of thought and line and talk about it. So hey, don't go anywhere. We here, you there, and our guest is on ground. And I will open up that particular topic, introduce our guest, and we will talk. So this is SOUQ Pulse. My name is Chuks, John Rogers Chuks. We'll go on a very short break, and when we return, we'll hit the talk going. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. It's SOUQ Pulse. So on this beautiful evening, we are going back and looking at the river basins in Nigeria. There are 12 of them, officially 12 of them, distributed along the geopolitical zones. Some are necessities. Some other ones came to balance the equation because of political reasons. But whether we like it or not, they all have to perform these particular duties that they've been made for. Now we're asking ourselves, the river basins, the Nigerian River Basin Authorities, that is the agency. But now these river basins as units, individual units, they have a whole lot of potentials that is also enshrined, not just in the policy, but in their document of work and on their activities that they are bent to achieve. Now we're asking ourselves for this particular program today, when can we start seeing this particular potentials translate to reality? The potentials of the entire river basins, when are they going to become a reality? People will wonder, where is it coming from? Okay, good. They are one of the major forces that should make sure and assist the agricultural sector. So farmers depend on them. That you know now. They also have several other things. We'll pick up each of these potentials one after the other, and our guests will talk about it. We'll ask questions when we get confused or when we don't understand. And we'll talk. And I also want you to do the same thing. And for those of you that might be shocked in hearing some of the things you will hear today, like you might not know that, okay, there are river basins. Don't worry. Let's get ourselves informed. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please join me as I welcome to SOUQ Pulse this beautiful evening, Engineer Caleb Terkuma Tyowuah. He happens to be the acting managing director of the Upper Benue River Basin Authority, Yola. Sir, you're welcome to SOUQ Pulse.
Yeah, thank you, Chuks, for having on your phone.
Very much. On Friday, we were built to have you. You did everything possible to come online, but the network far there in Yola was unfair.
Sure.
But today we have you looking all handsome and ready to inform us and educate us. Thank you very much for coming back.
Thank you for having me.
Good. Now, let's start on this particular note. Growing up, let me say, when I was quite younger, we had a lot of information about the river basins. the information was always there. We had national orientation, either informing us of extension workers or informing us of an irrigation plan or informing us of a particular funding, farming extension, something. But of late, most people in this era, they are not fortunate to have this kind of information. How and where did that stop? We want to hear what is coming out from the River Basin Authorities. So how can Nigerians be informed of the activities of your organization, sir?
Yes, to start with, I want to inform my audience that the River Basin Development Authority were initially created in 1976.
He's definitely going to return because he has a better network, unlike the last time. For those that are wondering, yes, we have River Basin Authorities, and I'm trying to get the list of them. We have the first was in Sokoto, followed by that of Chad. Then we had other ones that had to join the fray. Now, one major thing as it concerns Nigeria, as it concerns us, is if we look at where we are right now, agriculture needs the boost they can get. Every single assistance, every single help that agriculture can get, we need it now. And now the river basins play a major role in making that happen. Someone will say, why? That is part of the articles in their formulation. Irrigation belongs to them. So now you wait for rainy season to farm. Nah. With the river basins, you can actually farm all year round. Those are things that they can deal with. Now, also, for those that are wondering, not just irrigation, also crops. Now he's back, and we are going back to him. So, Engineer Caleb.
Yes. Are you getting me?
Ahead, please.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. As I was trying to explain, the initial concept of the river basin, when it were created massively for Operation Feed Nigeria by the then government of General Olusegun Obasanjo, 1976, the river basin have the mandate of both integrated water resources development for food production, and agriculture was part of the river basin. But along the line, there was another decree that was amended in 1987, which changed the mandate of the river basin, that took away the agricultural production aspect from it. And that was where most of the agricultural activities were no more being practiced at the river basin. So between 1976 and 1987 and 90, river basin were fully involved in both agricultural activities and then underground water and then surface water development for various activities like irrigation, water supply for domestic and industrial uses, and as well as construction of dams for power, hydropower as well. So these were all encompassing in the river basin operations. But with the change which made the river basin with only the water resources potential and development, the river basin mandate were being restricted. And that is why from that time, the river basin, most of the activities were no more on direct production, but to support the various irrigation activities for agricultural production, and then most of the direct farming activities which were done, both rainy and dry season, were not done directly by the river basin. But before that, the river basin were directly involved, and they have experts who were involved in direct crop production. But over these years, we are only supplying water and also guiding the farmers to do their own farming. No more direct production by the river basin staff. So that is what has transpired between that changes. And there's another policy review which has made the river basin to go back to some of these agricultural activities, but it has not yet been passed into law. It's still hanging in the 2016 Water Resources Bill, which is yet to be passed.
Now, looking at these policies and looking at where we are right now, now I'm talking to you now, not just as an executive within the river basin. I'm talking to you right now as someone who I know is very vast in farming and also witnessing what is happening, not just in Nigeria, but across the Sahel and Africa at large. Agriculture is not doing well. And if you agree with me, in the early part of the formation of the river basin, agriculture was a mainstay and it was functioning very well. Do you think some of these policies has affected it, or the running of river basins has affected agriculture?
Both the policies and some of the running of the river basin as well, because when the aim of the river basin initially was for them to become autonomous and to the extent of being not depending on government over some time. And that's why the initial plan was for them to build dams, machineries. They were having machinery for open up or land development. They also buy machines to even construct dams themselves, apart from the one they award contract. The other small dams they have to construct themselves. And then they have also the processing, which some of the river basin has processing, rice processing mills, maize processing, flour mills, and all that encompass in agricultural development. But when some of these things were taken away from them, they were not restricted in only the water. And then without water resource, only the water resources potential was for them just to develop. And you see, you cannot do agriculture without water. Like what you rightly said, the irrigation is paramount for the safest way of getting food sufficiency, because the rain that you have, in some places, you have up to 4 months rainfall in the year. Some places you have up to 6 months. But even those places you have in 6 months, there are a drought in between. And then you have a transition between drought and then flood. So you discover that if you don't have irrigation, most of the areas you cannot do twice farming in a year. But with irrigation, you can farm twice in a year. The time of flooding, you would discover that the water is being conserved. And immediately after the flooding, you take advantage of this and then plant. But sometimes you have to come and supplement it with irrigation. So if there's irrigation facility on ground, those places that you have this kind of lack of water during dry season and then flooding, you have to start. So these dams were constructed to take care of all these things. Downstream of the dam, you have irrigation taking place, and as well as controlling the flood as well. And then in places where you don't have...
Just go in there a bit. Before we look at the potentials and take them one after the other and talk about them.
Okay.
There are some places within the country where year after year we see this flooding happen. Aside affecting communities and farmland, it also affects homes. Does it fall within the river basins to check the flood?
Some places that the flood take place are urban flooding. Some are river flooding. So any flooding that comes within the river is under the privy of the river basin. That's why you call the river basin. Because as we have about 12 river basins. And these 12 river basins cover the whole nation. But the real aspect of hydrology of this country is covered under 8 hydrological units. And these 8 hydrological units covers the whole nations. Well, some of the river basins are having about covering about 1 or 2 river basins under 1 hydrological unit, or some are covering 1, a single hydrological unit. And then my case is Upper Benue. Our hydrological unit is HA3. So all the rivers that are draining are all directly flowing into River Benue comes under hydrological area 3. So all the rivers that flows within those River Benue, we are supposed to be having a check on them in terms of designing system that will check the flooding, and then having a water resources plan that will be able to manage this water that comes into this basin very well.
That's one aspect I will like us to dwell on and go back. But before we head there, let's look at some potentials. We want to hear from you. Now, these particular potentials we took directly from the playbook of the Nigeria River Basin Authorities. Now, the first one is saying various crops can be grown successfully. Now, you talked about that a little bit earlier. But now let's go to the next one. Massive irrigation potential of over 3.14 million hectares of land. So the 12 river basins have a potential. The watchword here is potential to irrigate 3.14 million hectares of farming land. But what we have right now from that same document is 100,000 hectares. When can this particular point of a potential be, even if it's 50 or 20% achieved?
The potential we have here were well planned, and then we have a water resources master plan, which was done. The recent one we have is 2013, which was released in 2014, water resources master plan, which assess all the potentials of the irrigable land within each and every river basin. And according to that water resources master plan, there was a developmental plan which was supposed to run for 30 years. That means from the year it was conceived, which was around 2010 to 2040, we were supposed to have attained most of this potential, which is well packaged in that plan. But as you know, it involved a lot of funding, massive funding, which are the area that was not really explored, because most of the river basins you have, they needed construction of dams to be able to irrigate those areas, because the surface water are to be explored in constructing dam and then irrigating downstream. Some are to be explored through underground water development by construction of boreholes, either shallow or deep borehole, which we go on the small scales that we involve either private or individual small-scale farmers to cover these potentials. But all within this time, we are still having the issue of the massive funding. And I believe the way out is for the private public partnership to come in, because government alone will not be able to fund these projects. And with a good investment from the private sector, this potential could be achieved. But I believe, as we have mentioned, it will really take a very holistic approach for this thing to be realized. And recently, the government made a pronouncement of irrigating Nigeria, which is a project that is also going to review this and then bring in all the interested private people, and then commercial farmers who are interested in investing in this irrigation agriculture to bring up this thing to potential within this time.
The funding part. I want you to dwell on this particular next potential. Then we can now go back to funding, which almost everything in this country needs funding. For you to really be part of this program today shows a whole lot of interest, leaving Yola, going for your assignment in Abuja and making sure your connection worked. It took a whole lot of funding from you, and we are grateful. But now let's look at this particular potential, because this potential speaks a lot. Now it's saying small to large scale hydropower generating capacity. But this one had a question mark to it, largely untapped, directly on the document. Is this still a victim of funding?
You see, a dam is a very expensive infrastructural project. And the small dams that will be constructed are mostly not having, in some cases, having that potential to irrigate any substantial areas. There are some dams that have that potential of generating hydropower as well as releasing water downstream for full development of particular areas of irrigation. And all these dams were identified in that Water Resources Master Plan. So the issue of these dams that are going to be explored will also come under massive collaboration between the Ministry of Hydropower, Water Resources, and the Environment, because there are some dams that the environmental problem will not allow them to just be constructed like that. So it needs the collaboration between these ministries.
Okay. Now, let's go back to that funding. Initially, when we started the program for today, you talked a little about the plan being that the river basins were going to be self-funding, which means we're going to be independent agencies of government, which means they were also going to be, if whether we like it or see it in some light, income earning and serving the citizens. Now we have a whole lot of beautiful projects on paper, and this needs funding. What are the plans, not on paper, what are the plans off paper to get both governments, to get both private individuals, to get corporate private companies, and if possible, to get organizations outside Africa to tap into what the river basins wants to do and put their funds down?
Well, I think the first thing for our investors, for them to find this in the environment has to be very attractive. And then recently, we also have to advertise our products. So the issue of insecurity, most of the time, is what discourages some of the investors. But I believe if there's going to be investment massively in agriculture to take care of this thing, there will be another collaboration within the various stakeholders involving the state government and then the federal government to be able to provide an enabling environment for these investors to come in. Because, of course, if there's that guarantee for their investment to be secured, everyone will want to come, because most of these potential are having very, very good potential for a high return on investment, especially the one you combine a multi-purpose dam, where you have hydropower generating electricity, and then you have water supply, and then you have irrigation taking place downstream for a single dam. It is a very good investment, which has a good potential for return. But if the environment is not conducive for the investors, well, it will become very difficult. But I believe government is trying the best to make a provision and then make that the collaboration between the state government, the federal, so that this project will go on.
Seeing this particular project fly will make our day. It will take us a very long way. Every single person wants to be able to walk up to the market and see farm produce, not at the price they are right now. We don't want to discuss food insecurity in Nigeria or food inflation in Nigeria. And this you've just talked about has a whole lot of positivities to make this happen. We are going to go on a short break, but before we go there, I want to ask, between the River Basin Authorities, Ministry of Agric, Ministry of Power, Ministry of Water Resources, what's the synergy like working across these agencies of government?
I think recently there have been that collaboration, which involve Agriculture, Ministry of Power, and the Ministry of Environment to be able to deliver the presidential mandate, which is focused on food security and then sustainable power in our country. So the agriculture itself, they know that they don't have that land to produce the massive food to bring about that food security. Because most of this river basin, as you all know, they cover the whole of the country, and they are the one at the grassroots, which is easily accessible. And the river basins are the one that even have the majority of the farmers because of their background from the inception to date. So the Agriculture Ministry, realizing this, they are making collaboration with the Water Resources Ministry so that they can reach out to these farmers. Because it's not just we, the Ministry of Water Resources, providing irrigation facilities for the farmers. If you provide them, if they don't have the input, like fertilizer, chemicals, then their crop will not do very well. So that is where the Ministry of Agriculture now come in. And then with even the latest technology of high-yielding crops, because most of the farmers that do plant their crops, they still based on the old technology that have a low yield. And then when the Ministry of Agriculture now collaborates with this, we should be able to provide the farmers with the latest technology in food production so that they will boost their yield capacity.
Very much. I would like to get a breather and drink in some water. We'll go on a very short break. When we return, Engineer Caleb is still here with us, and we'll talk some more on possibilities with the Nigerian River Basins. And for everyone out there, inform yourself, inform your neighbor, and tell them that the river basins are on the agenda on talk today on SOUQ Pulse. So don't go anywhere. We're going on a very short break. SOUQ Pulse. We'll be right back. Hello, welcome back from that short break. My name is Chuks, John Rogers Chuks, and this is still SOUQ Pulse. We're looking at the Nigerian River Basin Authorities, and we're asking the potentials. We want to see them translated to realities. And we have Engineer Caleb Terkuma, and he's here. He's been educating us and answering us on issues affecting his agencies, where they are working at, what they are projecting, and what we want to see. Things working. He's still here and he's not gone anywhere. So we're going back to looking at issues. But now let's go back to the particular potentials and look at what are the possibilities and how can we achieve it. Welcome back to SOUQ Pulse, Engineer Caleb.
Thank you.
Now let's look at one other major point from the potentials, looking at that particular document. Now, this is a side I did not get to understand very well, and I think you need to throw light into this. Now, it's talking about fishery, piggery, poultry development opportunities. Is that also one of the actions and activities of the river basins?
is also being revived. So, as I mentioned, it's also being revived, although as I already mentioned it before, it's still pending to be fully passed under the 2016 Water Resources, bill, but it's being revived. So most of the river basin are now undertaking various activities that involve livestock production, piggery, and the rest of them.
Before you move further with that, now having grown up somewhere around the Middle Belt, where we have a whole lot of small river tributaries and Fadama agencies, what's the correlation? What's the connection between the Fadama agencies and the river basins?
Well, there's nothing precisely like Fadama agencies. Fadama was just one of the African development support to farmers within a wetland. So we call it Fadama 1, Fadama 2, Fadama 3. It was a project that was initiated by the African Development Bank to support these farmers with various input and resources they need to do their own farming within the wetland. Just as I was informing you, there used to be a flood. So immediately after the flood, some of this wetland remain wet for some time. And then you can take advantage of that, exploit it. The underground water in most of this Fadama is not very deep. So you can just drill some shallow tube wells and then do your irrigation to produce a lot of variety of crops under a very cheap conditions, because the water table from those Fadama are not very high. They've gone deep, so that you always make it very easy for you to access the underground water and make use of it. There are some places that even immediately after the flooding, you plant some crops like beans. Within 3 months, you harvest without even single irrigation.
That's a lot of blessings. Okay, for those of you in the city, you might not understand this, but these are places that exist. So we need to get our hands dirty. If you are not getting to the farm, make sure your money works. Then the price of food can come down. Now, let's look at something else you talked about earlier in the program. You brought to the fore a reality, and that is that the river basins are majorly the people within the localities. This is one particular aspect. Most times, those in high offices might not really understand it. The person in the farm needs an assistant of someone that is next door, not somebody that have to take a transport and go see him. How can we exploit your presence in the villages, those communities we might not be able to access, where people are actually farming?
Just like what Agricultural Development Bank were doing before, these Fadama areas, with the knowledge most of them have, they have been doing their own farming on their own. So you were giving a statistics of irrigation potentials, the actual being around 100,000 hectares. In the actual sense, what you are having, the informal irrigation that's going is far, far more than that. Because within the upper Benue Basin, the number of individual farmers who are undertaking irrigation on their own for every dry season within this Fadama on their own are more than 40,000 hectares on their own. So these are the people that government need to support, because recently they have been bedeviled with this increase in fuel prices. They have been using petrol or diesel pump. And for the past 1 or 2 years, most of them, they have been almost going shaky because of the high cost of fuel. They find it difficult to have a break even. Some of them have even abandoned their farms because of the high cost of fuel. So we are now having a rethink of the modern way of supporting them is through these solar irrigation pumps. So if government can embark on massive supply of solar irrigation pumps to the farmers, it will help them in a long way to come out of this poverty. because most of them cannot afford to buy a fuel for 1,200 naira a liter to irrigate their farm. And most of the irrigation take about 3-4 months before harvest. So you could imagine if a farmer is going to irrigate about 16 times before harvesting a crop, and you're going to spend about 10 liters on a daily basis just for maybe half a hectare. You could just imagine what in the end, the whole cost of production, the fueling is taking almost about 20 or 30%. And then they are going out of means of their livelihood, because I cannot say it's business, because most of them, they are just doing small sustained farmers to feed their family and then maybe take care of their head and then little school need of their children. So we can come in by supporting them with these solar irrigation pumps. Although it is very expensive, but I believe government can do that. Maybe either by giving them at a subsidized rate and then maybe having a recovery period of some kind.
Now, if we operate as a social intervention fund, I think that it's possible. Then also, if we say, let's target subsidy on specific things for specific people, that can also be possible. If we can give rebates or take tariffs out for certain importation, why can't we do it for the farmer? If the farmer can farm, then there will be food for everybody. But now let's move forward to some of these potentials, knowing fully well that your time is limited. Now, we have tourism, we have water sports, and we have recreational potentials as part of these particular activities. We also have pollution control. What is the collaboration or correlation between the river basins when this comes on board and the Ministry of Tourism?
I believe for now there's none, but it is a very good area that's explored, because most of these dams being constructed, you have a large vast land of reservoir, water body upstream, and then you could build some recreational, maybe a resort, a hotel resort on those upstream of the dam, where people come, and then because of the body of water, the environment there will be very serene. There, maybe it will also be cooler than other places. So you could build some resource center upstream, and then also maybe fishing activities. Fish could also be done, so that maybe from time to time there's kind of a fishing activities taking place. All those who come there can also go on recreational activities as well, to do their little maybe holiday there, and they try to do things like fishing as well. But presently, I've not known of a very good one that is there.
From these particular potentials, from this blueprint, we see a whole lot that can come out of the river basins. Out of the entire 12 of them, none is exempted. But now let's look at ourselves and ask ourselves this particular question. If we have to market the river basins, from your point, because if Nigerians are aware that this is an opportunity, this is a blueprint, and we have to market it, how do we start? Because it's not just going to be an activity left for you that is heading it. I have to get involved. The next person has to get involved, and we should all market it. So what will you tell us on how to market this particular project?
Of course, the first thing is the land potential we're having, because most of these river basins, they have their own peculiarities. There are some river basins that have a very good potential of farming rice. There are some that have potential of farming maize. There are some that have potential of farming tomato. So for all those ones that we have, and we know that these are the needs of the people now, we could also advertise those lands available for these commercial farmers to come in. And then the dams potential we're having for hydro that are yet to be explored, we could also bring them up. And I believe the Nigerian government, through a World Bank, is undertaking what we call SPIN, Sustainable Power and Irrigation Project in Nigeria, which they are trying to bring out with the cooperation of, in collaboration with the Ministry of Power, Water Resources and Sanitation, as well as Environment. They are trying to have a water resources, master plan for hydropower. And then for every hydropower you develop, there's a potential of controlling the irrigation downstream because it is a renewable energy. The water is not consumed. As you generate the power, the water is passed downstream. So if you construct a dam that has a hydropower potential, the river that used to be dry for some time, if you are releasing that water, you have a particular determined amount of water that go downstream, which could be used for irrigation and other industrial use as well. So that is another way to advertise some of this potential we have. So if we have a package of all those, already we have a water resources master plan for irrigation and our various dams, and then you have a hydropower master plan. If they have that one too, then most of the investors could have it at their tip because it will not be in the domain for all the investors to be able to see. And then we will have the kind of incentives for the investors who comes to invest in this. Because if an investor comes to invest in any irrigation project, he may also have to set up a factory to offtake some of this product he's going to process. And then the people there also have a benefit of also participating in this factory being established or industry, agro-allied industry within those areas. So I think by doing this, we can woo a lot of investors to come into this the vast potential we have in our Nigeria River Basin. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Engineer Caleb. You've made this beautiful evening look more flashy and more better. I want to say thank you again for making sure you connected back to this particular program after what happened sometime last week. It's been a pleasure having you, sir.
Thank you. I'm great.
I hope next time when we call you, you will also answer us, and maybe if possible, we will be very close to you, not just from the studios.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Forward to that. To everyone that has been part of this particular program today, is more of an educational kind of program. Whether you are aware, whether you are not aware, now you know. This same message, you need to pass it across. The potentials in this country abound. We have no excuse to be poor. We have no excuse to wallow in lack. We have no excuse not to farm. We have no excuse for our tourism not to work. We have no excuse for powers not to be on. It's just doing the right thing and following through on the project ideas that we've put down on paper. Now, for those that are wondering, mind you, this particular river basin has been on since the 70s. So imagine the amount of potentials that has been in the cooler for a very long time. It's our responsibility to say Africa should work, Nigeria should work. So issues like this, we hold them accountable, get them working. And for those budgets have been made for, account for it. Let's keep talking and things will work. It's when we keep quiet, things will fly over our heads. My name is Chuks, John Rogers Chuks. Remember, this is your country. Have your say. Be nice. Love your neighbor as yourself. And to every member of the crew that has brought this to us today, I want to say thank you very much. You guys are just the best. We'll do this again tomorrow. Have yourself a beautiful evening. Bye.